Entrepreneurship Community Podcast. I'm your host, Patrice Tsague. We have with us today one of our board members, the president and CEO of The Holland Inc., the board chair of Burgerville, how can I put it? Pretty much an iconic brand here in the Pacific Northwest. Jennifer Mears, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Patrice, for having me.
Well, thank you, Jen, for being here. Today, we're going to talk about this whole idea of developing a transformation mission statement. Jennifer is co-authored the course that we offer here at Nehemiah called um, Mission in Action, which is based on the book that her father wrote called Servant Love, which is based on an actual real life case study of the company Burgerville. This is actually the only course we have that's based on a real life case study. And
Mhm.
so we're so excited to have Jennifer here with us. And so get ready because you're going to go on a ride to really look at your mission. So what I want you guys to do as we get in this conversation, if you have a company, what I want you to do is look at your mission statement. And so as we have the conversation, see what tips and guidance you can get from Jennifer to kind of improve upon it. And we're going to also give you opportunities to engage with our team to help you with that as well. Jennifer, before we kind of get into your story and your journey, first of all, thank you for your contribution of time, talents, and treasure to the mission of the Nehemiah entrepreneurship community.
It's my honor.
Jennifer, I came to know you by way of your dad, and it's not often that a child, I'm gonna say child, but best better a child follows in along with their parents in sometimes not in business, let alone in the causes that they're passionate about.
Mhm.
And your case is a bit different, even though you didn't want to be part of the business, at least lead the business, you've always been a part of it. So let's talk a bit about your involvement with Nehemiah and why that became something more than just something your parents was involved with, but for you personally.
Nehemiah kind of struck a chord with me because I've always been interested in coaching, development, helping people kind of find their purpose and live their purpose. But it was very important to me that that come from a Christian background, that it's rooted in who they are in God, that they come to know God, and then they discover all the rest of it. And then to have it apply to a business context seemed strangely revolutionary in my mind. But I was like, yes, no, that feels like home. That's the balance of, most of us live in the business world. That's where we live our life out and live our purpose out. So to connect my faith with my work was really important. So it made sense. And then I've always had a heart. Nehemiah is not just based in the U.S., it's international. I've always had a heart for what's going on around the world. And so it all came together.
It did. As a matter of fact, you were with us in Mexico. You're with us in Paris, France, and you're right now mentoring two of our centers in Kenya. Frank Kitang. By the way, Kenyans friends who are watching and listening, she actually is the what we call board buddy, or the mentor for both Frank, the Nairobi Center, and Lorna, the Sanargo Center. You must be proud to see what Kenya has been able to do back to back.
Yeah, it's really exciting. The Well, I was able to meet Frank when he first came into Nehemiah and presented at Nehemiah Week in Orlando. I don't know how many years ago now, 5 or 6 years ago. And just his passion and enthusiasm. And so it's not surprising to me that he went back and it's just sort of exploded back there because he just has so much energy and love. And contagious. So it's really exciting to see. And then Lorna comes from a wonderful heritage, again, a family organization, not business, it's education, but the family thing. So that nurtured her and positioned her in the right place at the right time. And it's exciting to be a part of that.
I remember, by the way, for those listening, so Kenya has won and watching, they won our international business plan competition now 4 years in a row. No other country and no other center and no other coach have had that kind of track record. The closest person was Ukraine, but it wasn't back to back. The next closest person was Madagascar, and that was also not back to back. So Kenya has beat all historic records. I remember when Frank first came to the system. I remember the year he decided he had won the competition. I think he won like second or third place if there was level.
Second, yeah.
Yeah, second place. And then he took his winning, his cash, and he actually, in the days of check, he actually, signed the back of the check and returned it back and said, "I want to use this to buy a license to bring the Nehemiah back into Kenya."
Yeah.
Now, this family, they weren't exactly flushing with cash, right? He could have used that money. And it said a lot about him.
Mm-hmm.
His poor wife, it's like I already had in mind, the children's schooling, all the stuff that we had been missing. And this guy, he just took a leap of faith. And he said to me, as he went back to Kenya, he said, "Patrice, we Kenyans, we go slow, but we go far."
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. He has lived up to it. An
Yeah.
amazing leader. Now, so this month, Jennifer, we are celebrating what we call Members Month. First time ever. We just crossed the 2,000 mark of membership. So that means that we have over
Yay.
2,000. Yeah, that's a great celebration.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, you and your dad were instrumental. We have what we call kings. These are top givers. Now, remember when I talked to your dad and your mom in Florida,
Yeah.
like what, 5, 6 years ago? And I made that big ask to kind of get this infrastructure built and so forth. And they're one of those who responded. So tell them thank you
I will. Yeah.
because of them. As a matter of fact, you'll like this. So we, as you know, we onboarding these digital agencies to work on our marketing. And as we've been working through it, what we've realized is how much, because of all that investment that has helped us lay the technology, the process, and so forth, how ready we are. It's like you don't realize how far you've come. It's like we couldn't have done what we're about to do 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
All that investment laid the foundation for us now being able to do this. So thank you. They've left an amazing legacy. So, but in any event, so Lord, where was that going? Lord, totally lost my train of thought. But yeah, Members Month. Yeah, so we're celebrating our over 2,000 members this month. And so one of the things that's important to us, and you've been part of this as a board member, kind of helping us think through this navigation about the emphasis on community, more than
Mm-hmm.
just about training and coaching, but the importance of community, and the fact that everybody, we just wrote a piece this week called "You Belong,"
Right.
a community where people belong. So you've been a member for a while, you've been a supporter for a while. So tell us a bit, what are your thoughts about the impact of the Nehemiah community as a community? What I appreciate about you community with us, if that's the word. You commune with us,
Mm-hmm.
not as a donor out here that's just kind of supporting something, or as board member kind of, but you come along us as a peer, and
Mm-hmm.
that I've always appreciated. How has that been both for you in terms of just impact for you, but also as you're seeing people, kind of be benefited from this community?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I do find that I desire more of a hands-on approach. Um, I get as much out of it as I give into it. I love to see what people are up to learn what their stories are, to find out what their challenges are, to see where they're growing. And you can't do that from afar. You need to get in there and be a community and walk beside them when they're going through stuff. Um, so I think that's really important. I like the relationship part. I really loved when we met in person with Nehemiah Week, because that was a huge part of it. You would talk to people, hear their stories from a distance, but able to finally, meet them face to face was wonderful. And I do think the infrastructure that we've put together really made it possible for us to survive and thrive through COVID and into this new way of being together. Um, so I think it needs to be a combination of in person and all the different things that we are doing together. So yeah, I think it's important um, to be connected in an active way.
Yeah, no, well said. As a matter of fact, speaking of, a little plug here. So, guys, mark this down. We don't have a specific date yet, but Q1 or Q2 of next year, by April, May, we'll be having our best practice conference and tour here in the Northwest in Portland. We had it in Florida this year, so be ready because we're going to start promoting it soon. So you'll be coming here in Portland and
That'll be
Vancouver live in the living color. You're going to get a chance to actually visit physically a Burgerville. You're going to get a chance to physically visit some of the business in the area, and we're looking forward to having you guys join us so you'll get that live experience as Jennifer just talked about.
and I'll be
So
there.
yeah, that's going to be neat and fun, and you'll get a chance to hear about Serve with Love right in public. I remember when Yamil from Mexico, you've been to
Yeah,
Mexico with me,
yeah,
when he first came to Portland, he wanted to go to a Burgerville because Serve with Love had an amazing impact on him.
yeah.
And I remember when he went to Burgerville and he had that burger and that shake and all the goodies that there, the nostalgia, the impact
Hmm.
of having read about it, taught it even, and then now experiencing the meal. I know things are going through change, Jennifer. Do the best you can to keep the Burgerville as we know it, so that when people
Oh
come to
yeah,
Portland,
yeah. That's my desire. Yeah, for sure.
I love it. Let's go back to your story. So your grandfather, actually, your great grandfather, began all of this. It began with
Hmm.
him out of Chicago. By the way, there's a book called Stir with Love that is available on the Nehemiah store. If you want to get deeper into the story of the Mears, not the Mears, the Pastrack and Mears family, that Mears family, you can do that. So you can check that out. So go back a bit because your heritage begins with immigrants.
Right. Yeah.
Talking
So
about,
the Burgerville story really starts in the Netherlands. My great grandfather and one of his brothers initially came over here to the United States early 1907 or something like that to do some reconnaissance. And then they went back and brought all of their family to America. And I'm assuming that they were in the creamery business back there because my grandfather and one of his brothers went into a creamery business together here in the U.S. They settled in Chicago, met another Dutch family. They settled in the Dutch community. Um, and that's where my grandfather was born in Chicago. And then they moved out here to Vancouver, Washington, and started their creamery out here. Um, so the business started as a creamery. My grandfather brought in his two oldest sons, um, one of them being my grandfather. And then the creamery turned into eventually it was a grocery store, well, selling creamery products, ice cream, that sort of thing. Then they put a counter in to serve ice cream and milkshakes, and why don't we add waffles and whatever else they had on the menu to people and have them stay. So it turned morphed into a restaurant. my grandfather took over that, ran that, turned it totally into a restaurant. Continued to make ice cream, I think maybe into the 50s, but it wasn't, the creamery was no longer the focus. It was a restaurant. And then he was active in the restaurant community, went back to Chicago where all of the big conferences were every year. And that's where he discovered this new concept called McDonald's. And he was like, that's an easy, fun idea. I could do that. So he comes back I guess there was always a big story about they would ride the train out talking amongst themselves, all the restaurateurs, and ride it back, I'm sure his little mind was just brewing full of ideas. And in 1961, we opened our first Burgerville here in Vancouver. My parents, my mother married my father, obviously. So my mother was, this was George, my grandfather. My mother was George's daughter, and she got married in 63. So Burgerville was, 2 years old, and moved to the San Francisco area. And when they got pregnant with me, Grandpa wanted, his grandbaby, his first grandbaby, close to him. So he offered my father a job. And my father said yes. And they came up here. My father opened up the first Burgerville in Oregon. And, then we were just, in Burgerville forever and ever. The Holland, the business was called The Holland after our Dutch heritage. And by the time I was born, there were maybe 3 Holland restaurants. And I was born in 4 Burgervilles, so it was kind of equal balance. But the Burgervilles took over, and the Holland slowly receded. And the last Holland restaurant closed around 2001 or 5, somewhere in the early 2000s. And people still talk about it, still wish it was there. But now the Burgerville restaurants, we're up to number 48, I think, but we've closed some. So that doesn't mean we have 48 restaurants. We've got about 40, I think, Burgerville restaurants in the Portland, Vancouver area.
Wow, from that one restaurant. By the way, those of you who are in the Portland, Vancouver area, if you go by the Hilton, there's a park in front of the Hilton, and that park, there's a clock there. The Dutch, those from Holland, are known for their clocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your grandfather, he actually had that come from Holland, right? That came from
the parts of it are, yes.
From Holland.
You mentioned the clock and that portion of the park, and so all the parts
he
in the Netherlands.
was also known as one of the first major, before the Murdoch Trust, one of the first major philanthropists in Vancouver.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and he did a lot of that anonymously.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of his life, he was a little bit more out there. So there's several things with the Propster name on them. But he really loved things that had to do with children. He lost one of his sons to cancer, childhood cancer. So he was really, his heart was for parks and things that improve the lives of kids.
Your grandfather had a unique way of capturing kind of the essence of the moment, with Holland restaurants, kind of capturing that sense of families needing a place to go out to eat, Burgerville, being able to capture kind of, in the Bible, we talk about the son of Issachar. They understood the time. You knew your grandfather. What was about him that gave him that kind of sense of capturing the sense of the moment with these ideas?
He was really good at that. And for the rest of us who aren't so good at that, that was uncomfortable because it seemed almost, he wasn't attached to things. So, if it was time to change something, he would just up and change it. The rest of us,
he was an innovator. He was an innovator,
very
right?
Innovative, and he was ready to torch anything that wasn't
Didn't work.
innovative anymore. Or he thought it didn't work. We had a fish restaurant, a very nice fish restaurant called Henry's in Hazeldale. And he closed that after like 3 months. It's like, this is not working.
It's not working.
Shut that thing
Wow.
down. It's like, what?
You know,
So
he
it
had,
can
he
be
had a
kind of
true
startling.
founder spirit,
Yes,
and
that's
these
right.
are people who built America. These are people who really, these are the anchors, the people who build infrastructures. I mean, that you need that kind of personality,
Yeah, yeah,
but very rough for the people around them.
totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
so,
yeah. People still
so the,
talk about him, how much they loved him because he was always very centered.
Mhm. Yeah,
But for the people back of the house, sometimes that was not. There was a
not
little
very fun.
tension. Yeah.
So before we get into the Servant Love, the mission statement, does so you're the first grandchild. So how much pressure did that create for you, recognizing that you've got your father, your grandfather, this legacy that you how much did that create any pressure? Did you have to go to drugs and alcohol to figure it out? I mean, what?
No. Yeah, I think it created pressure, but I don't know how much of it was. Most of it was internal pressure, I think.
Mm, mhm.
Some of it was external. My first job was at a Burgerville, of course. And I remember, hearing the buzz amongst all my fellow crew members when George was coming in the building or something. It was like, well, what's the big deal, you guys? But they were like, all the buzz, and we got to make sure everything's right and stuff. And so that was always a little, it was a barrier for me to connect with people, it felt like. And then my grandfather and my father, they worked basically 7 days a week,
Yeah.
20 hours a day at least. So I didn't think that's not a lifestyle that I want. And I didn't like coming home the summer I worked in my Burgerville smelling like French fries. It's hard to get out of your clothes. So I just didn't think that was something that I wanted to do or that I could do. But I did find myself, going to work there after lots of soul searching. People would say, "Why aren't you working in the family business?" I mean, the things that you say that you kind of want to do, there's a perfect platform for you to be able to do that. I'm like, I don't want to work in the family business. But I finally did, but I kind of kept going in and coming out and going in and coming out.
You are at the most peace. I've known you for years. You
Yeah,
are the most peace that I've ever seen you. It's like you found your center. Is
right.
that right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it happens to be in the family business.
I know. I
Of
know.
all places, right? After, but that's good because you didn't do the obvious. You allow the Lord to take you through, so you can make a choice in your own time, your own terms, and
Right.
figure it out yourself.
Yeah, I think I give all the credit to God. I don't know how I wouldn't have been here if it was my choice. But um, I also see it different possibilities out of it that I never could see out of it before.
Wow.
I'm I'm So the track I ended up on was doing some property management. So now I really consider myself a property manager because
Mhm.
my grandfather bought lots of properties initially to build his Burgervilles on. So we have that in our company business, and I manage that with Burgerville, a great tenant. And so that's easy. I can do property management. I just don't want to run the restaurants, and I don't have to because I've got a CEO to do that for me. So I was like, okay, I can do that. So I can focus on the future, on growing Burgerville, on nurturing, serve with love. Um, and then hopefully, I've got visions for where I want to take the Holland, the company business, the family business part of it. I have visions of where I want to go with that more in terms of helping entrepreneurs and people to live out their vision. So that's all very exciting, and things that use my gifts in ways that I couldn't have envisioned in the
I
past.
love it. Jennifer, how does it feel to be in that place where it finally comes together, where besides what your parents have done or what they may need you to do, because there's a sense of responsibility and obligation that comes with being part of family, any family.
Right.
But how does it feel to get beyond all that for yourself to say, oh, wait a minute, I've got my own fresh vision, how I see this. It just so happened that the family stuff can facilitate it, or I can use as a tool, but it really has nothing to do with that. It's something that how does I mean that must feel good.
It does. It totally does. And it's something that I was striving for under my own energy, I think, for years and years. Had lots of angst. My core question was, who am I? What am I here for? Um, couldn't figure that out. I didn't see the answer to that. And the things that I would think, I'm going to go in this direction, that wouldn't work out. And I still felt pulled and would keep trying it in different ways, and it would never work out. And, God had a purpose of preparing me and preparing the situation so that everything came together at the time that it did. So
Oh,
it's
that's
really just
incredible.
letting go and letting him direct it. And, if like I have a heart for coaching, well, when and if the time comes, I'll be able to do that. But it's like it's not outright happening right now. But there are little bits and pieces that I can do that, even being a board member is a type of coaching. So there are outlets for me, and it's just letting God direct it all.
Oh, this is so rich. Wow. Victor, we're gonna have to do two parts of this because I've got so much for Jennifer. Two parts of this. So would you come back for part two, Jennifer? I really wanna continue this. So but I got a few things for we land the plane. You
Yeah.
said a number of things. So um Jennifer, what's the hardest? Because you had to break through the obligations. Because sometimes people think, well, you had it easy. I mean, great granddad set it up, granddad set it up, dad set it up. What was it? What was so hard? But isn't it kind of sometimes difficult? Because in that you have to find yourself. And you and I had
Mhm.
this conversation at one point. Talk a bit about that. Not that it's sometimes easier to have a blank slate because then you know you can kind of paint what you want to paint. But talk to me about navigating that.
Well, yeah, there is a sense of I'm a round peg being forced into somebody else's square hole that they created, and that's not where I want to be. Um, and I didn't want to turn into my grandfather. I love my father, but he had a different vision. I can only be me. I can't be anyone else. Um, but I was able to see over time, I, and it had to take time, that I could incorporate bits and pieces of what they're doing, and then continue on their legacy in my own unique way. Um, it helps that my father has stepped out of the business and then I can step in. So I have that freedom to be able to do what I want to do. But even when we were working together, we were really kind of in sync in most of the things that we were thinking about. Um, but it's come through lots of reflection of being able to see this is sort of where I want to go, and I can see that this is actually tying into. So, for example, if I want to turn my business more into a foundation instead of a property manager, what am I managing properties for? What's the purpose? Well, it's to come alongside international and national. So to me, that sort of ties into my immigrant background. business people. So that's again my great grandfather and my grandfather and my father, and to live out, serve with love, which is my father, so that I can help people connect with their purpose and make an impact in the world. And that's my father, and that's me. So I can see how I can sort of bring everybody along and create something new.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
so incredible. Listen, what we kind of just heard here is kind of how Jennifer herself have come into her own clarity of her own mission and purpose. And we're going to have Jennifer back. We're going to, I want to chew on this a little bit more when she comes back, because I want to kind of talk about how she figured that out. Because I know some of you guys watching and saying, okay, how did you figure that out? Right. And then there are two kinds of people watching. There are those who have a blank slate, and we're going to kind of talk to you for a little bit. But then those who, like Jennifer, you're part of a family business, and we're going to kind of talk through that, and then we're going to take back to her father's journey with Servant Love. So we're
Mhm.
going to kind of have her back. This is so good, Jennifer. I got so many other questions for you, but our time has come up. But before we leave, though, I want you to give one more advice to our people. But before we do that, listen, this is Members Month at Nehemiah. It's a
Mhm.
month that we take to celebrate membership. You belong. You belong to this community. We know you have a number of communities that you're a part of. We thank you've chosen this community to be a part of it. You may not be a member, but you just what we call a social community, where you watch our podcasts, you get our newsletters, you visit our social media. We appreciate and we love you. You belong. I want to invite you to go one more step further and join and become a member. So if you want to do that, you say, hey, I love to belong, to be part of this wonderful community. Just go to our website, Nehemiah Entrepreneurship Community, or NehemiahEcommunity.com.
Mhm.
And then just go there, go to community, and right there, you can begin your journey to belong. Whatever level you want to belong at, we want to come alongside you in community so that you and I, Jennifer and I, can walk with you and kind of help you along your journey to find what God has created you to do and how He's called you to do it.
Mhm.
We have members from Asia, from Africa, from Europe, from Latin America, from North America, speak French, English, Spanish, all kinds of languages. We have different activities, live group connect meeting, global forums, Nehemiah Week, those kind of things for you to kind of engage and be a part of. We'd love to see one of those. And also, if you enjoy this podcast, you love Jennifer's story, and you're saying, I know somebody who's in a family business who can be inspired by this, I want you to share with them. Put it in your social media feed, put on your Facebook page, put in your Twitter, whatever social, push it out to others. Friends share what inspires them with other friends. You might know somebody else who's in the family business who feel maybe trapped. And you're saying, listen, hear the story about somebody who could have been trapped by her parents' legacy, who was able to break out of it. I guarantee you, we're going to have Jennifer back to talk about how she did it. So you might also learn how to do it yourself. With that in mind, Jennifer, before we leave, there's what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in Middle East.
Mhm.
There's inflation. Many people are right now, I've been like feeling unstable. What
Mhm.
advice would you give people right now to say, hey, no matter what's going on, here's how to stay in that center that's key to maintaining peace in your heart.
Keep your eyes on Jesus.
Mm.
There's He is the my grounding and the source of peace. And um, I know that God's in control, has a plan, and all the craziness that's going on around, He knows about it, and um, I don't have to worry about it. Give it over to Him. It's just like with all the issues going on in my work and my life. You just give it to Him and do what's in front of you.
Wow, I love it. Listen, I mean, it doesn't get more common than that. And if you don't have a personal relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ right now, wherever you are, you can just do it now. Just confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus Christ died for your sin, and you will be saved. God bless you. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
I think we lost Victor. Victor?
He's been typing, I think.
Well, I'm waiting for Victor to close it out.